Coming up, the Blue Jays walk off in extras and the Rays finish another sweep to stay unbeaten. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us to go over the biggest stories in baseball and recap all of the action for you from yesterday in the MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Blue Jays scored 2 runs in the 9th to tie it before George Springer won it for them in the 10th. Our Locked On Blue Jays host recaps the comeback win.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Blue Jays lose a stinker at home, 3-1 to the Detroit. Being updated on something here too. 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th to tie, and then a gorgeous Kevin Kiermaier bunt, manufacturing a run in the bottom of the 10th, and the Blue Jays win. Oh my goodness. Okay, how about that? What have we learned in our conversations the last few days, in our crossover conversations with Locked On Tigers? What have we learned about the Detroit Tigers? Well, it's that they've struggled significantly this season with putting together 9 innings of a baseball game, 9 solid innings, nine innings where you're a winning team. Well, that was on display today. Totally crumbled late. Blue Jays taking advantage, get the 4-3 victory, and all of a sudden the question becomes how sweep it is. Going for the sweep on Thursday on Locked On Blue Jays on Thursday. We'll get you set for that game. Also, it's Throwback Thursday, so a lot of great throwback stories about your Toronto Blue Jays.
The Dodgers scored 10 runs on the Giants to win their first series between the two this season. Our Locked On Dodgers host tells us who helped contribute to the offensive outburst.
Well, in this boom or bust season for the Dodgers, that was a boom. What's up? It's Jeff from Locked On Dodgers. Like I said yesterday, this was basically the same exact game that Dustin May had in Game 2 of this series against the Giants, except this time the offense showed up. Clayton Kershaw, 2 earned runs in 6 innings. Sound familiar? That's about what Dustin May did. Difference is offense put up 10 runs instead of 0. You're going to win a lot of games when you score 10 runs. In fact, I'd go out on a limb and say you're going to win most of your games if you score 10 runs. And that's what the Dodgers did. Great offensive game. 2 more home runs for Max Muncy. It was ridiculous. Could have been even more. Freddie Freeman was robbed of a 2-run double at one point in the game. It was a great game. More bad umpiring, but that's the story of the last several years. All in all, great way to win the series for the Dodgers. Head back home after a day off. So check out Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning for this and every other game that you want to talk about.
The Astros are trying to get back to 500 on the season, and they looked back in playoff form by shutting out the Pirates in Pittsburgh yesterday. Locked On Astros recaps the Houston win.
This is Eric Heisman with the Locked On Astros podcast, and the Astros are now 6-7 on the season after beating the Pirates 7-0 on Wednesday morning, afternoon, whatever you want to call it. It was an early start, and the Astros offense got off to an early start as well when Abreu drove in McCormick early in game. Then you had Corey Julks get his first major league home run. They fanned threw the ball back, so Julks was able to keep it. And then Alex Bregman hit his second home run in 2 days to add 3 more runs in the 7th inning. Then the Astros scored 2 more runs to make it 7-0. And then Jose Urquidy had a good start, 6 innings, shutout baseball. Then you had Neris, then Abreu, and Blanco come in to get the job done. So now the Texas Rangers are coming to Minute Park for a weekend series without Corey Seager, who was put on IL. We'll talk about that and more on tonight's edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
The Twins' Sonny Gray is off to a hot start this season. He's allowed just 1 run in 17 innings. That includes 5 shutout innings he pitched yesterday against the White Sox. Locked On White Sox goes over the loss as Chicago's bats go cold.
The Chicago White Sox lost to the Minnesota Twins on Wednesday afternoon, and they lost the series. Hey, I'm Nick Morawski from Locked On White Sox. Gavin Sheets is not a right fielder, yet he was out there in right field Wednesday afternoon. Sheets had a spin move collapse situation on a routine fly ball that you got to see to believe. Sox defense and offense failed Lucas Giolito. He deserved better. Outstanding outing, 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, had 7 strikeouts. White Sox have the day off on Thursday and then come home to the South Side as they host the Baltimore Orioles for a 3-game series. For more, check out the Locked On White Sox podcast.
The Yankees came back from an early 4-0 deficit, and they took the lead in the 9th inning to beat the Guardians on the road. Locked On hosts with both teams recap things from Cleveland.
This is Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees, and it wasn't a pretty one, but the Yankees won 4-3 against the Guardians. They win the series 2 out of 3. They head back to New York on a positive note. It didn't start so positively. The Yankees found themselves down 3-0, and then they scored 4 unanswered runs. One big run, Franchi Cordero hitting a home run, because that's all he seems to do. He tied the game at 3. And then in the top of the 9th, Oswaldo Cabrera hit a big RBI single to put the Yankees up 4-3. That's what the final was. There was some controversy in the game with the umpires. Aaron Boone got thrown out of the game for arguing. And it was kind of exciting at the beginning there. And it almost looked like it was going to be one of those games where the Yankees weren't going to score. And then they did. Thank goodness. So again, a nice series win for the Yankees. We'll have everything you need to know about this on the next Locked On Yankees, so tune in.
The Guardians lose. My initial thought here is Ahmed giveth and giveth. Boy, did he give the Yankees a lot in this one. You got Stanton running down first base line, who I might be able to beat in a foot race due to his injuries over the years. Why rush that throw? Bad throw and a bad cover at first base gives the Yankees a run. Then they load the bases. Amazing job by Oscar. Amazing job by Stephen Kwan to get those bases loaded. You got a pitcher who's struggling. Let's bail him out by swinging at multiple pitches outside the zone. Strikes out, the bases loaded. Cleveland easily could have taken this series from the Yankees. They do not. They take 1 out of 3. They were not in yesterday's game. This is a game they should have won, though. It is a frustrating game, and my frustrations are high right now. Schedule opens up, gets a lot easier after this, but this is a game they should have won. Ahmed had a rough one, but he also had the home run early on, so wouldn't be close without that. Guardians dropped this one, unfortunately.
The Mets hold off the Padres in the late innings for a 3-run win over San Diego. Locked On Mets tells us how New York got the job done.
The New York Mets were able to beat the San Diego Padres, getting some revenge from last season, where the Padres not only beat the Mets in the playoffs, but beat them in every series the two teams played. Now you get the monkey off your back a little bit. Tyler McGill, strong through 5. Mets bullpen even better, particularly David Robertson, 4 massive outs. Pete Alonso homered, Francisco Lindor homered, and Brandon Nimmo came alive with 3 hits and a couple of RBIs. Just a solid day at Citi Field for the Mets. On tomorrow's show, I'll be breaking it all down with Javi Reyes, the host of Locked On Padres, who is in the building. Should be a fun show.
The Seattle Mariners beat the Cubs with an exclamation point in the form of a 480-foot home run at Wrigley. Locked On Cubs goes over the loss that kept Chicago from sweeping Seattle.
Cubs with a pretty lifeless effort today, losing convincingly to Seattle. Logan Gilbert was really good for the Mariners. The Cubs just couldn't get the bats going. Marcus Stroman threw a nice game, but the Cubs just couldn't get the bats going. They scored 1 run in the first and then really had absolutely no traffic on the bases until the 7th inning. Jared Kelenic hit a ball that was as far as I've ever seen a ball hit at Wrigley Field, and I've been watching the Cubs play at Wrigley Field for a really long time. That was unbelievable to see, a 482-foot home run. He had a massive series, homered in every single game of the series. Cubs did take 2 out of 3, though. They will head to the Dodgers this weekend. They have an off day tomorrow at 6-5 after a 4-2 homestand. So good stuff overall, just not a great performance today.
The Marlins beat the Phillies in extras. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Built Bar. They are the best tasting protein bars on the market. Trust me, they're all made with 100% real chocolate. And if you haven't tried them, you definitely want to check them out because they're pretty much good for you. They're low in fat, low in sugar, low in carbs, but high in protein. And as I mentioned, they taste great. I really like the puffs, which have that protein-infused marshmallow, like the coconut puffs and the brownie batter puffs. Those are my favorite. You can get them at Built.com, but you can also go to your local Sam's Club or Walmart. They have the 4-bar boxes in the pharmacy section at Walmart, and they have those 13-bar boxes at Sam's Club if you want to get a bunch for a low price. You can head there, and then you can always check them out at Built.com. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you again for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Nolan Gorman hit another key home run to help the Cardinals beat the Rockies for the second straight day last night. Locked On hosts with both teams have more after the final.
Captain Jack Flaherty and the long ball. Get it done in Denver. Hey, it's JD from Locked On Cardinals. In less than 24 hours from their thrilling comeback win over the Rockies, the Cardinals again fell behind early, but not for long as the team got home runs from Tyler Bro-Neal, who sent a missile into the shrubbery in center field, 461 feet away from home plate. You get a 2-run moonshot into left field by Nolan Arenado, and then another go-ahead bomb by Nolan Gorman, this time to the opposite field, and the boys go on to win the game 7-4. Jack Flaherty much better in this one. Only 5 1/3 innings pitched, but just 1 earned run on 5 hits. He had 6 punchies and only walked 1 guy. He's gotten better each time out, and although he didn't get the win today, you got to be encouraged by his performance. Back-to-back wins means a happy flight home tonight. For the latest info and updates, be sure to keep it Locked On Cardinals.
Rock on Rockies fans, Paul Holden here from the Locked On Rockies podcast, and that's an incredibly disappointing end to both of those games. A defensive error cost the Rockies, leading to big runs in a series that should have ended up in a Rockies sweep, honestly. They had the moments, they had the momentum, they had the opportunities, and instead they fall to the St. Louis Cardinals. They're in 2 out of 3 games when they really should have won both of them. The Rockies now falling even further below 500 and now head to a Seattle team that's also looking to get right against the team. The Rockies have to come up more clutch. We've been going over this over and over again. They had a good start. Jose Urena let up a little bit of those home runs again, but his best start of the year, and the Rockies can't back it up and fall short yet again. We'll be breaking it all down right here on Locked On Rockies.
The Diamondbacks have won 5 of their last 6 games after taking 2 of 3 from the Brewers to start the week. Arizona wrapped up that series with a win against Milwaukee, and Locked On Diamondbacks has the info for you postgame.
Can you believe it? The D-backs continued their streak of not dropping a series in 2023 after destroying the Brew Crew 7-3 in the series finale. Miller Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks here. Dre Jameson has been a spectacle coming out the bullpen for the D-backs, but with Zach Davies going on the injured list, we needed someone to replace him, so why not put one of the best pitching prospects in the organization in the rotation, and that's what the D-backs did with Dre Jameson, and he stepped up once again. He only pitched 4 innings, but looked absolutely nasty doing so, and he only needed to go 4 innings because the offense backed him up today with 7 runs. They had 5 doubles, a couple home runs as well, and the D-backs were able to take down the Brew Crew, continue their streak of not dropping a series in 2023, and now they got the second most wins in the National League. I want to say, 13 games into the season so far? Yeah, we're feeling good as D-backs fans right now.
The Marlins and Phillies needed 10 innings to decide things on Wednesday before Miami picked up a win on the road. Locked On Phillies recaps that loss.
The Phillies fall in their series finale with the Miami Marlins. Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies. A brutal way to lose a ball game today. First off, in the first inning, you get a leadoff single for Bryce Stott. He steals second, a single for Trey Turner, and you leave runners on the corners with no outs and the heart of your lineup up. That's unacceptable, especially against Edward Cabrera. He's not one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then the way that game ends, I don't love the decision by Rob Thompson to take out Gregory Soto. He just struck out the hottest hitter in baseball, who just hit for the cycle last night, and Luis Arias. And then you go with Kimbrel, who's been rough to start the year. Rob Thompson's making some questionable decisions. The middle of the lineup isn't hitting too well. I don't know. That's a brutal way for the Philadelphia Phillies to lose in extras. Still early. We're on to Cincinnati. We'll talk about it more on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.
The Angels got a 1-run win over the Nationals yesterday, and Locked On Angels looks at what won it for them in LA.
We were all interested to see Griffin Canning on the mound on Wednesday, but it ended up being the Brett Phillips show against the Nationals. What's going on, everybody? It's John Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. The Halos take the series and win Wednesday's game 3-2, thanks to 5 innings pitched from Griffin Canning, where he only gave up 2 earned runs. He got hit around a little bit, but when he was dotting his pitches on the edge of the zone or up in the zone, he was getting guys to pop up, fly out, strike out, and hit balls on the ground. Brett Phillips was amazing defensively. He probably saved a home run. What could have been at least a double, he got to that one against the wall. He walks in a run and also steals second and third and is able to come home on the pass ball on the throw to third base. So he manufactured 2 runs all by himself without swinging the bat, which is pretty crazy. And then Logan O'Hoppe gets the go-ahead run by hitting in Brandon Drury. Mike and I are going to talk about Griffin Canning's start in this one and recap the game for you. We hope you'll join us on Locked On Angels wherever you get your podcasts.
The Tampa Bay Rays cannot lose. They are now 1 win short of the league record for best start to a season. Locked On Red Sox recaps as Boston becomes Tampa's latest victim.
We will not panic about the Red Sox. We will not panic about the Red Sox. We will not panic about the Red Sox. Even though they lost their 3rd in a row, they've lost the series now. We're still not going to panic this early in the season. What's going on, everyone? It's Lauren from Locked On Red Sox, and there's still one more game against the Rays, so the Red Sox can salvage a win in this series, but they lost their 3rd straight on Wednesday. Another rough outing for Chris Sale, not at his sharpest, and an absolutely brutal scene from Zach Kelly. He left the field very emotional after throwing a pitch, grabbing his elbow, and then he hit the ground, his face went into his hands. Very emotional scene. We are hoping the best for him. The offense did come alive. We did see another home run from Rafael Devers, so that was a positive. Jake and I will break down everything from the pitching, hopefully an update on Zach Kelly and his injury, and everything in between on our next episode of Locked On Red Sox.
The Tampa Bay Rays have yet to lose a game in 2023. Believe it or not, they are 11-0 to start the season. They beat the Boston Red Sox by a score of 7-2 tonight, thanks to a really solid pitching performance by Ace Shane McClanahan, plus 4 home runs by the Rays ball club. Josh Lowe got 1, Brandon Lau got 1, Isaac Paredes got 1, and Yandy Diaz got 1. So if my math is correct, the Rays still lead all of baseball in homers, if you can believe it. Now, there was a little bit of troubling news with the team as Zach Eflin, the $40 million man acquired in free agency, has hit the injured list. So the Rays have called up Taj Bradley, the top pitching prospect in the organization, to see what he can do in Wednesday's game against the Red Sox. Should be an interesting showcase and debut for him. Stay tuned as the Rays go for their 12th straight win.
Eddie Rosario hit a home run in the 8th inning to push the Braves past the Reds on Wednesday, and our Locked On Reds host tells you how Cincy ended up the loser in this one.
Well, we can't keep doing this, right? I mean, gosh, the Reds are fun. They're frustrating. They're entertaining, and they're still frustrating. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast, and can't keep doing this, right? Can't do this all season because they're there. It feels like the lineup's got the right pieces. They're making progress, and they just keep losing. There's this thing by the bullpen. They haven't done this in a while, and it happens. And Buck Farmer gives up a home run for the first time in like a year, and the Reds get swept by the Braves. They're 1-5 on the road trip, but this team, you can't quit them. Got a lot to talk about. See you on the next Locked On Reds.
That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else to get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.